Dear Elizabeth, there are too many unfinished letters, too many pages of writing on this floor to sort through. Too many times I've started writing this and have had to start over. Too many lost memories of the world that once was. Too much heartbreak, too much sorrow. It pains me to sit in this room, lost in my own foolish, innocent belief that everything was going to work out just fine. Everything was going to go to plan. You and I would both be saved, together. This demon, this thing that made its way over to our little corner of the world, we would escape it, you and I, break free of its clutches. It would not possess us. I was wrong in thinking that way, Elizabeth. I'm sorry. If I could relive it now, I would change everything. I would get us out, move us far away where it couldn't find us. Travel to Stockholm, perhaps. Maybe Moscow. Anywhere would be better than here in London. These streets are no longer what they used to be. Looking out this window, I see nothing but a covering of icy fog in this cold, long winter. It's a cloud of famine, Elizabeth. A disguise for what hell really looks like. A disguise for the bodies lying in those seemingly deserted streets. A disguise for the people suffering at the hand of this demon. I'm surprised the sun still rises to greet the city with each passing day. I'm not sure what I'm going to do now that you're not here, Elizabeth. But for your memory, I will live on as best as I can. I will stay inside these four walls, do my best to keep interaction with the outside to a minimum. For your sake, I will not die in such a state as those around me. That is one of my promises to you. I will get through this alive. My soul will not leave to join you until it's ready. My body will not end up another lifeless corpse, riddled with the incurable poison. And after all, if that happened, who would write my poetry? I don't think heaven will provide me with my pen and paper. You always loved it when I wrote my thoughts down like that. So, that's what I will do. I will write poems for you, Elizabeth. And when the time comes that I am of old age and in my bed, I will hold them in my hand, so when I join you, you can read them and I can see that beautiful smile once again. The thought of that smile is what will keep me alive. It will act as an armor against this plague, this black death. My dear Elizabeth, I write to you from the world of the living in the hopes that this letter will find you in the afterlife. I look forward to seeing you again, my love. Until then, I shall think of you every day. With love, from your husband, William, dated 16th of November, 1349. One. Tim ran down the stairs two at a time, and as he reached the bottom, he ran in the direction of his room, passing the seemingly countless doors on either side, pushing his legs to their limit. He needed to get back to his room, the things he had seen. He needed to feel safe. Room 7, room 8, room 9, and then finally he reached it. Room 10. Grabbing the knob and turning it, the entrance opened, and he slipped into the room, shutting the door seconds later as quietly as he could. It didn't take him long to cross to the other side of the room, to the bed, and get into it. He positioned himself so he was facing the opposite way to the door, looking towards the window that gave a view on the courtyard of the building. He hoped she would not be here soon. The rules were that he wasn't supposed to be out of bed this late, and certainly not to be out to sneak around looking in rooms he shouldn't be. Had he been seen? No. That much he knew for certain. He had been careful, made sure the hallways were clear before he had ventured out. All he had done was gone to the toilet and come back again. That was what he was going to tell her. She would never know what he had really done. That was his excuse. He just went to the toilet. It wasn't a big deal. He was allowed, wasn't he? The rules didn't apply for that sort of thing. How could she know he had been venturing up to the third floor and looked in on her office? There was nobody even there. No, it wasn't possible. But she did. She always knew. There had been others who had done exactly the same as he had done. They had broken the rules, had done it without her seeing, but she had known anyway. The punishment was given to them. He saw what had happened to them, the nightmarish things that she did to them. He didn't want the punishment. He didn't want to end up like the others. He would rather die. As he lay in the bed, he listened. Nothing was present within hearing range. There wasn't the sound of footsteps coming down the hall towards his room, no sound of the door creaking open as she came in to confront him and then take him away. Nothing. He only heard the sound of his own breathing and the eerie silence of the orphanage around him. Why had they moved him here? He thought about the question, and then he came to the answer. They didn't know about her. 2. Before this place, he had been living with his old foster parents, a couple in a small 3-bedroom house on the poor side of town. He would rather be there than here right now. Sure, they had their rules, but they were reasonable. A lot better than the previous people that he had been set up with. He wanted to be in their home, lying in the bed that they had set up for him in the spare bedroom. He would give anything to smell that sour scent of alcohol in the air, and he would give anything to be picked on by the little brat those people had given birth to. In his mind, it was a paradise compared to what he could potentially be facing in the coming hours. He had been taken away from those people because the organization that looked after him had decided that they weren't fit to look after him, weren't treating him as well as they could have. In their words, it was neglect. So they had taken him instead to an orphanage. This orphanage. It was a place called No Place Like Home. They said it was nice. A place where they looked after kids like him. He would be accepted into it, make friends. His life was going to get a lot better. And at first, it seemed like they had been telling the truth. They had driven him there. He had met some of the kids. They understood what he was going through, and they understood because he was like them. They were orphans too. He had been introduced to all the children, and even some of the adults. And then he met her. The caretaker. The beautiful young woman with auburn hair, the green eyes, and the warming smile. "You will be safe here," she said. "I will take care of you. But listen, there are 3 rules you must follow. Number 1 is don't fight with the other kids. Number 2 is always treat others like you want to be treated. And the 3rd and final rule, don't leave your room after bedtime." You got all of that, Tim? He had nodded. She seemed nice enough. She wasn't telling him he was ugly or stupid, or he would be forever alone because he had no real parents like she was used to. She wasn't telling him that they had abandoned him at birth, and he would never be close to anybody. None of that. She was just a nice lady in his eyes. Just a nice lady. He couldn't have been more wrong. It had started off good. He got along with the others. Nobody bullied him or made him feel like he didn't belong there. They followed the 3 rules like they were supposed to. It was like the perfect scenario. But the one thing that Tim had started to notice over the weeks was that whenever the caretaker was around, the other kids would be extra nice. Almost like they were going out of their way to obey the rules. No one would ever speak much when she was around either. They would just look down, concentrating on what they were doing. It was almost like when she was in their presence, the socialization function would turn off in the brains of the other kids. Like they were frightened to speak. Then it happened. One rainy day after Tim had been there a month, he was playing in the main TV room of the orphanage, just minding his own business, using his imagination with the toys to make a universe of his own, when one of the new kids that had arrived days before, Sam was his name, got angry with one of the others, telling him to shut up and that's not how you play the game. After the outburst, he had thrown the board game halfway across the room and had gone and sat in the corner. Not 30 seconds later, the caretaker was in the area, standing in the entrance behind him. The words she spoke were nice, caring, understanding. No trace of anger or frustration in them at all. Sam, what happened here?
She wasn't playing the game right. She was cheating.
He didn't turn around to say this, but as he spoke, the caretaker walked into the room towards him, arms folded over her chest. Now, Sam, what did I tell you about being mean to people? It's not on here.
I don't care about your stupid rules. She was cheating.
There was a long silence, and then the caretaker sighed. Come on, you're going to have to come with me.
Why?
Because you broke the rules, Sam, and things happen to those who break the rules. If they didn't, there would be no penalty for wrongdoings. So come on. Don't worry, it will be okay. I'm just going to talk with you for a while. You're not going to get in too much trouble. Come on. Reluctantly standing up, but not taking the hand that the caretaker had put out for him, Sam followed her out of the room and down the hallway. As soon as she was gone, everybody started playing and talking again, as if nothing had ever happened. It wasn't until 2 days later that Tim saw Sam again. 3. He wasn't the same. He had been a full-on, in-your-face kind of a boy. One that didn't take no for an answer. He was one of those boys that would have no regard for the feelings of others. You could have gone so far as to use the word bully to describe him. The way he was now was totally different. He had become pale, his face not showing nearly the same amount of emotion, his eyes sunken in. He looked tired, too tired, drained almost. Nobody was talking to him, and Tim, being the kind of boy he was, wanted to make sure he was okay, even if he was a bully. Hey, Sam, what's going on? What did you and the caretaker talk about? Tim had walked up and asked him the question. There was no response at first. The boy just sat there, staring at the ground. Eventually, though, he moved his head up to face Tim and simply stared at him, straight in the eyes. This scared Tim a little, and he started to move back. But as the boy spoke, fear turned more to a concern.
I mustn't break the rules.
Those were the only words he spoke. After, he simply looked back down at the ground. Tim was worried. The boy was obviously sick, too sick to be playing outside. So he did the only thing he could think of doing. He told the caretaker. He found her walking the grounds and had run up to her, opening his mouth.
Miss, Sam is sick. I think he might need a doctor.
With a smile, the caretaker knelt down to the height of the boy, then responded, I know. Don't worry, Sam is okay. I noticed he was sick this morning, so I gave him some special medicine. He should be okay in a few days.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure, Tim. Now, quick. Better get to playing. You only have 10 minutes of activity time left. And so he did, trusting that the caretaker knew what she was doing. Why wouldn't she? She was an adult, after all. However, 10 minutes later, when everybody was being called inside, another boy came up to Tim. Tim didn't know his name, but that detail didn't matter. It was the question he asked that Tim found the most confusing. What did he say to you?
What?
What did he say to you? Sam, you were talking to him before. What did he say?
Nothing really. Only that he must obey the rules.
Just like the others. Just like the others? What was this kid talking about? The statement had sparked an interest in him, and he coaxed the boy for more information.
Others?
The boy looked around him then, making sure nobody was within earshot distance. Then he spoke, his voice low, almost a whisper. Whenever anybody breaks the rules, she knows.
Who knows?
The caretaker. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, she always knows if you have broken the rules. It's happened to 6 other kids since I got here. She always asks them to go with her, and then you don't see them for a while. And then they come back, and they are never the same. They hardly talk, and when you ask them anything about what happened or how they are going, they always just respond with, I mustn't break the rules.
What? The caretaker? No, she's a nice lady. She gave Sam medicine for his sickness.
I wouldn't really call it medicine. He stopped talking and looked around again, surveying who was around him for a second time. Ask Jessie about it. He turned them both around, pointing at a girl near the back of the line. She had blonde curly hair and wore a blue checkered dress. She was one of the first to be taken away by the caretaker. Nobody knows what happened. She won't talk about it. She just responds with, I mustn't break the rules. Tim went to speak, but the boy cut him off again. Trust me, you don't want to break the rules around here. And whatever you do, never go up to the top floor to her room.
What happens if I go up to her room?
You become like them. And that was all that was said. After his sentence, the boy simply walked inside along with the others, leaving Tim standing there, looking at the line of kids as they shuffled in. Not knowing what to think of the boy's words, he went through with the suggestion that had been laid out, walking next to Jessie as she passed him.
Have you ever broken the rules? Got on the caretaker's bad side?
It was a simple question, and she gave a simple answer, never looking at him while she spoke, simply going about the walking action like he wasn't even there. I mustn't break the rules. Tim didn't know what to think. He stopped walking and watched the rest of the children file into the building. What was going on? Could the caretaker really be doing this to the others? He didn't get far in the thinking, however. He was interrupted by a female voice behind him. Tim, it's time to go inside now. He turned around. The caretaker stood behind him, wearing a gentle smile. Yeah. He turned from her and walked in. 4. The rest of that afternoon, he thought about what the boy had said to him. If you break the rules, she always knows. She takes you away and you become like them. It couldn't be true. The caretaker was a nice lady. She had never been mean to him. She always wore that smile and always had that sweet attitude. She was just trying to get everybody to follow the rules. That was all. When it was time for lights out, he decided that the boy had been lying to him, simply winding him up, trying to provoke fear in him so it would give him nightmares.
that was the kind of person that boy was. He was mean. That's all there was to it. But as the weeks went on, he noticed what the boy had been saying. Anybody who broke the rules, the caretaker would be on them in a second, leading them down the hall away from the rest of the children. It was mostly the new kids that arrived that had it happen to them. It seemed that unless they showed curiosity in the people who were taken, they didn't know about the previous people, or the claim that the caretaker changed the kids. Nobody told them about it. When Tim spotted the kids who were taken after they had been put back into the group, he would go up to them, ask how they were, whether or not the talk with the caretaker went well, and every time they would give him that same response: "I mustn't break the rules." Needless to say, he was starting to suspect that he shouldn't even think about doing the wrong thing. He had tried to talk again to the boy who had first told him about the caretaker, but he was having none of it. Whenever Tim would try to get information from him, he would simply say that he didn't know what Tim was talking about and walk off, heading to another part of the orphanage building or the other side of the room, beginning to play with the other kids. Tim needed to know more of what was going on. He needed to know what was going to happen to him if he broke the rules. Of course he wasn't going to do it intentionally, but what if he did it accidentally? She had said that he wasn't allowed to leave his room after lights out. What if he needed to go to the toilet? Would she know if he simply went down the stairs to the restroom? It was innocent enough. He wasn't trying to break any rules, but he didn't know. What if she got him for something as simple as that? He needed the answers, and there was only one place he could find them. He was going to venture up to the caretaker's room. Of course, he wouldn't do it during the night, but rather during the day. That way, he wouldn't get in trouble, and he could still find out whether or not something was going on in there. It wouldn't be breaking the rules if he didn't go into the room. He would simply put his ear to the door, listen out, and if there was nothing there, he would come back down to the first floor where everybody else was. If there was something, well, he would get out of there anyway. Either way, he wasn't going to break the rules, and he didn't intend to either. He hatched the scheme for the next day. It was just after 11 a.m., the designated time that they were allowed to play. He had an hour. When nobody was looking, he made for the staircase, walking towards it casually. Once he got to it, he took each stair with caution, careful not to make too much noise. Eventually, he reached the second story, and was faced with the staircase to the third floor not too long after that. Looking both ways down the corridor, making sure nobody had followed him or was on the second floor walking around, he was about to make for the first stair to the third floor, when a voice behind him scared him half to death. 5. "What the heck are you doing, man?" It was the voice of the boy that had given him the information in the first place. "I'm going upstairs. I'm going to check out the caretaker's study, see what's really going on up there." "No, don't do that. You can't. She will know. She always does."
"No, she won't, because I won't go in there. I will just listen at the door."
"Don't even go up there. She might get you for just thinking about it."
"Don't be silly. She can't read minds."
He turned back around and started to make his way up the stairs, but the boy stopped him, grabbing him by the arm and pulling him back down.
"Hey, what's your problem?"
Tim said this as he was struggling in the boy's grasp, trying to break free. "Are you stupid or something?" The boy got no further in his question. A female voice from behind both of them made itself known. And what could possibly be happening here? 2 boys at the stairs to the third floor? The boy let go of Tim and faced the caretaker. We weren't going upstairs, miss, honest. We were just here, talking, that's all." There was a silence before she answered, a curious expression crossing her young features as she dropped down to their level of height. "Alistair Jones, you wouldn't be lying to me now, would you? You know that's against the rules, and if you've broken the rules, well, you know what comes next." The look of fear on Alistair's face at this point was the face of a boy in despair. "I'm not lying, miss. Promise." She smiled and looked at both of them, hovering her gaze on each of them in turn. When finally she spoke again, the words were aimed at Tim. "Tim, I know you would never lie to me." "No, miss, I wouldn't." He too now felt the fear start to rise in him. "So, is it true you boys were just standing here talking, or were you planning to go up to the 3rd floor?"
We were just standing here talking, miss. We were talking about how cold it is outside today.
"How cold it is outside today, After her words, there was an eerie silence. The two of them were waiting for her to make her decision. Would she punish them, or would she simply believe what they were telling her? Eventually, she sighed and stood back up. "Well, if you two want to talk, it's best to do it in the playroom. We can't have you kids getting lost now, can we?"
No, miss.
The two of them said this together.
Well, run along then.
She started to walk away down the hall, and the two of them headed for the stairs back down to the 1st floor. When they were out of earshot of the caretaker, Alistair spoke up again. "Do not go to that room. You will regret it."
Why?
He didn't answer the question, but simply walked back down the stairs and into the room where the other children were, leaving Tim to watch after him. He knew he shouldn't even be thinking about it. He should be acting like the other kids, playing as he normally would. But his curiosity was getting the better of him. He started to hatch a scheme inside his mind. He would get up to investigate the room in the early hours of the morning. That way, if he did run into somebody, he could say that he was just going to the toilet. He had gotten lost on the way back to his room. This would work on the other adults, and if he played his cards right, the caretaker. He was good at conversation when he was talking to her. This much he knew to be true, and it seemed that she trusted him. After all, she had caught him out in the past and had seemed to trust that he was doing the right thing. It was decided. He would check out the room the following morning. 6. Night fell upon the orphanage as the hours ticked by. 4, 5, 6, 7. Soon, it was 9 o'clock at night, and the caretaker was going round to the rooms, saying good night to the kids and switching their lights off. By the time she got to Tim's room, he was already tucked into the bed, and she turned the light off. He pretended to shut his eyes and try to get to sleep. As she closed the door, however, he opened his eyes again and sat up in the bed. If he was going to keep himself awake until 6 a.m., he would need some help. That afternoon, when the group of kids had been told to pack up the toys, he had taken a Game Boy, hiding it in his pocket. It was one of the old ones, a Game Boy Color, but he wasn't concerned with the model. All he needed was a screen, and it did its job perfectly. By the time 6 a.m. rolled around, he had beaten the game he was playing multiple times over, but it had kept him awake, and that was all he needed it for. Carefully and quietly, he climbed out of his bed and walked to the door. He only pushed it open slightly at first, wanting to observe the hall to make sure nobody was passing through. Nothing moved. He continued pushing until he was out in the hallway, then gently closed it behind him. Taking a deep breath, he started to walk forward, slowly, making sure his feet didn't make too much sound on the black and white checkerboard surface. Before he knew it, he was standing at the base of the stairs leading to the 3rd floor. Without hesitation, he started to climb them one at a time. He was lucky they were carpeted. He didn't have to be too careful with the noise they would make when he walked on them. Reaching the top of the stairs, he saw that the caretaker's office wasn't too far away, just at the end of the hallway. Suddenly, fear hit him like a ton of bricks. He swallowed. He wasn't supposed to be here. He should be in bed. No, he couldn't think like that. He came here to find out what was going on, and he was going to do just that. He stopped the thoughts before they got too far out of control. He started towards the room, tiptoeing now, listening out for anybody that could come by at any moment and spot him. Nothing happened, however, and by the time he reached the door, the fear inside him had lessened some. Although he was hesitant at first, deciding whether or not he should go through with what he was about to do, eventually he pushed himself forward and pressed his ear against the door. He didn't know what to expect. Screaming, tools being used, machine sounds, giggles. But he heard nothing. It was like the room was empty. Either he was right in his thinking, or nothing was happening in it right now. Or maybe it was simply just a normal office.
Maybe Alistair has been lying this whole time, just to freak me out. It's all a game to him.
Tim thought about this as he stood there, straining his ears. Alistair could have set the whole thing up, designed it so whenever he had asked one of the other kids that had got in trouble about what the caretaker had done, they responded with the words, "I mustn't break the rules." He seemed like the kind of guy that would do something like that. After all, he was pretty popular, and he had gone out of his way to act like he didn't know what Tim was talking about, withholding the information from him about the caretaker, making sure the fear built up inside Tim to the point where he had broken the rules to find out what it was all about. That was it. He wanted Tim to get in trouble with the caretaker. Alistair knew that Tim was not a rule breaker. He got along well with the adults here, and they treated him nicely. He was jealous. A sting of anger hit Tim. This had been Alistair's plan all along, to trick Tim into breaking the rules. Well, Tim would show him. He would show him that he had the guts to stare the broken rules right in the face and not get caught for it. With a heart filled with confidence, he stepped away from the door, extended his hand, and grabbed the knob. With a twist of the handle and a hard push, the door swung inward. It was then that he wished he had never come up the stairs. He wished he was in his room asleep and dreaming. He even wished that he was back home with his previous foster parents. Wished he was talking with the brat daughter. Anywhere but the position he was in would have been the best place in the world. What he saw before him could only be described as horror. 7. The place was nothing like an office, but rather more along the lines of something from the movie Alien. It looked like a nest of some sort. Strands of clear goo covered everything in a protective layer of silky web-like material. There was no desk or other items you would usually find in an office. Instead, large moving shapes of reddish-like flesh clung to the walls and ceiling. The floor was covered in a white foam, and bugs of all shapes and sizes darted across it as Tim opened the door. It was like a nightmare, and the longer he stood there, the more he thought that he must be dreaming. Then, all of a sudden, he heard a cry. Looking over in the direction where it came from, his eyes widened in horror at what he saw. The shape of a hand, seeming as though it was trying to push its way out of one of the reddish flesh things located on the wall. And that was when he realized with horror that the things on the walls weren't a replacement for the plaster. They were eggs. Eggs that contained the victims of those that did wrong. The caretaker was harvesting them, breeding something from that which she took from the kids, those that broke the rules. He didn't know what to think, but he knew that whatever demonic operation that the caretaker, if he could even call her that anymore, had going on here, it was nothing but bad news. He needed to warn the other kids about this. but he couldn't do it right now. He would have to wait until playtime that morning. He started to back away from the door, beginning to close it, when a sound echoed out across the hallway. He stopped in his tracks, looking around for anybody. A few seconds passed by. Then all at once, fear gripped Tim. It wrapped around him, feeling as though it was some kind of symbiotic alien life taking over him, paralyzing him one muscle at a time. He needed to break free of this. He needed to get out of there. If the caretaker knew he was here, what he had seen. He turned in the direction of the stairs and sprinted back down the hallway and down the stairs 2 at a time, back to room 10. Once he was inside the room, he jumped back to the bed and hid under the covers, hoping the caretaker would not know he had done what he had done. And that is where he is laying right now, his eyes tight shut, and his mind focused on nothing but the begging to whoever was listening. He knew he was going to get in trouble. There was no doubt about it. She knew. She always knew. And she was going to get there soon, take him away back to that office, put him in one of those eggs. She would change him, make him like the others. Whenever anybody would ask him if he got in trouble with the caretaker, he would simply answer, "I mustn't break the rules." But the longer he lay there, the longer he didn't hear any footsteps. He had expected them to come no more than a few minutes after he had jumped into the bed, and had been dreading that moment. But it seemed to never come. He simply lay there in complete silence, and when at last he couldn't hold his eyelids open anymore, he had one last thought that echoed through his mind and into his dreams.
I hope she doesn't save it until the morning.
That morning, his dreams were littered with the images of the caretaker's office. He had a nightmare that he was stuck in one of those eggs, and the caretaker was watching over him, no longer a human being, but something with 8 legs and red eyes. It didn't speak, just simply laughed at him as his soul was removed from his body, and the black tendrils of death curled around him, suffocating him. And in that moment, he knew what hell was like. All the tales through the centuries about Satan, fire, it was all true. His soul would be forever buried below the earth, and there was nothing he could do to stop it.
I mustn't break the rules.
8. As the time struck 11 and the kids filed into the television room, Tim looked on at them all. He knew he had been like them once, eager to play, eager to make friends. He would talk to them, laugh with them, draw pictures, watch the television. But what was he now? He knew the truth behind it all. The truth that the orphanage was a hideout, a nest for some entity that called herself the Caretaker, a demon. Where had the actual caretaker gone? Had this thing harvested her soul and taken on her form? He supposed he would never know those answers, but the ones that were most important for the others, he did know. He wanted to tell them, to shout at them to get out of there. They were in danger. He wanted to let the other adults know, to show them the room, but he didn't know if he could. He didn't know how to. "Hello, Tim. How are we today?" The all too familiar sound of the caretaker behind him.
Not too bad, miss.
He turned around and spoke to her. "Well, that's good. Why are you standing here for, though? Go and play with the others."
Yes, miss.
He smiled as he said this, and she smiled back, walking off down the hall. He had started walking towards the rest of the kids when Alistair came up to him. "Okay, listen, I've decided I'm in. We will sneak up to the caretaker's office tonight. I'll keep a lookout while you check it out. I know it's risky, but you're right. We need to know what's going on up there. Who knows what she may be doing to the other kids?" As he finished talking, Tim slowly turned towards him, opened his mouth, and said his next words slowly and calmly. I mustn't break the rules.
He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end. A thinking man with an idea he can't comprehend, for his typewriter sits vacantly, a lost, inanimate friend. His ideas grow weak as time passes by. He is a face on the water, a face that would make one weep and cry. A novelist at heart, claims he in the chair, not with the makings of success, but despair. It's not the time, nor the place, nor the life. His days are numbered, a mortal coil that demands the drink, the death, or the knife. He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end, for 'tis a common demon that has infested him, without make of devil powder, nor lethal white sting. 'Tis not God's grass, nor mankind's party spirit. This demon relies on weakness, through the call of its golden brown hue. He drinks and drinks and drinks, for when he gives into the demon, it's all he can do. For his talent is lost in those moments. 'Tis nothing but a dying light, in a field of black roses through and through. For he is never on the mend, and as day turns to night, beside him no friend. He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end. The minutes, the hours, the days pass by, but he is still here upon the earth. The demon has taken everything, his home, his talent, his life. He lives on the road now, and still his mortal coil demands the drink, the death, or the knife. He doesn't ask those around him for a helping hand. He would rather go on marching across the land, but he doesn't know and doesn't see. This isn't what he wants. This isn't the place he should be. But there is no sound from him, no desperate plea. He's a face on the water, and soon to be a face on the sea. He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end, beside the road or on a street bend. He wanders in the days and stops in the nights, a novelist at heart when he could turn on the lights. He has lost his typewriter, his work, the rite of pass. His work of fiction is now a work of broken glass. The pages that once he loved, the pages he held dear, they are gone now, but he sheds no tear. A man fully corrupted now, he sits on the brink, one of life and death with a half-shattered link. He needs to find his way to come back, but the novelist inside him is hidden, taken by a dark man named Jack, for the apple does not fall far from the tree. In the days before the novelist was here, ignoring his strengths and giving in to his fear, his father roamed this earth, a man forsaken it seemed from his time of birth, for he too fell under the demon's spell. 'Twas not mind over matter, but mind in hell, and through generation past it seems, the novelist likewise fell between the seams. Falling, falling, no ground to break this fall, no net, no breaks, none at all. For following in the footsteps of one possessed is not a good thing, nor is it one of request. And so he knows, and so he knows. After traveling a month or two, the novelist meets somebody on the road, somebody new. He carries a six-string on his back, a loaded instrument, an acoustic monster. He is an unknown Hendrix, a lone wanderer. He can sing like Lennon, likewise like Paul, the voice of an angel, an artist for all. He tells the novelist of his tale, a journey through thick and thin. He tells of black roses, of stinking of gin. And for the first time the novelist did listen, his eyes wide and his mind on the addiction.
And so he saw, and so he saw. For when I was young, the guitar man said, I had a heart of steel, boots full of lead. And I was not who I am today. I didn't have the lessons. I knew not the way. My heart was only full of aggression. So I left, went where the wind took me, a far road north. Along the path of my beam I went forth. It was a road less traveled, of that I'm sure you know. But it was me and me alone, and I put on a good show. But soon I began to wonder, soon I looked inside. I found my soul was on fire and that I had lied to myself, lied to me. But I found my way again, and I found it true. If you let me, I can help you to find you. The novelist thought this over, drink in hand, his gaze directed down, his thoughts on his stand. And when at last he decided it was true, he looked up, broke ground, found it new. Yes, he said, help me please. The guitar man nodded and handed him 2 items. You will need these. The novelist opened his hand and gasped in surprise. They were bullets he held. He couldn't believe his eyes. What's this? He said, watching the man go. You'll find out soon enough. You will come to grow. But keep them handy and keep them true, for they are a key for you. The guitar man left without a second word, leaving the novelist sitting there. What to do now, he thought, getting up from the bar. He wandered outside, his thoughts on a star, and when he looked up that man, night above him, a man with nothing but the clothes on his skin, he thought of home and his typewriter, sitting on that desk without meaning. And when at last his thoughts came to end, what was still on his mind was his inanimate friend. And when sunrise came with streaks of gold, the novelist realized the drink had grown old. His life was a fable, ready to be told. I know what these are for, he said, talking to the guitar man face to face. You have given them to me so I can find my place. And at that the other nodded, his smile full and true, and shook the novelist's hand, saying, You have work to do. The novelist agreed, for he saw the bullets were a turning point, the things that represented his strife. If he didn't shape up, eventually the bullets were going to end his life. And so he left the guitar man standing there in the road, left him with his monster 6-string, left the man he owed, and back home he went, back to his typewriter, the inanimate friend, the imagination biter. And once again he wrote the words, the story down on paper. For this was a story he wanted to share, a story people could read much later. He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end. A healing man now, a man on the mend. For he has returned home, this novelist of ours. He has returned home. His mortal coil no longer demands the drink, the death, or the knife. For he has overcome that bad time in his life. He sits and sits and sits as day comes to end, sitting gladly with his typewriter, his inanimate friend. For he is a face on the water, and we say it true, but no longer a face on the water like a statue. For he is a novelist, not a face in the crowd, and he is said as such to the world and made it loud. Thanks to the guitar man and his sense of self, he has written his books, and they now sit on the shelf. He is a thinking man with an idea he can now comprehend, for he has relied on his inanimate friend, and with each and every word he writes down thus, he writes it down in expression to all of us. The Girl at the Window. That's what we used to call her. Lovely Jennifer at the window. Nobody really knew her last name, but that wasn't the important part. All we cared about at the time was whether or not we would get a glimpse of what was back then, the only thing of importance on any of our minds. Would she get undressed, and if so, how much would she make available before she closed the curtains, hiding her body once again from our 15-year-old eyes? It was funny, in a way. No matter how many times we hid in those bushes and looked up at the window, we always thought that that time would be the time. She would take her clothes off, we would see what we wanted to see, and the four of us would go home happy. Hormones on the high alert, our first taste of adulthood in our minds, and the secret of what we had just seen sealed on our lips. Those good old teenage years. Not a care in the world, no threats on the horizon. Freedom was what you would call it. Pure, definite freedom. We could have run naked through the streets if we wanted to, and it would seem that not a soul in the world would care. Of course, that wasn't the case at all, but we believed it to be so. Lovely, lovely Jennifer at the window. Show us your beauty. Put on a good show. Lovely, lovely Jennifer at the window. Thanks for coming to our town from Glasgow. Not the greatest poetic genius of the 21st century we knew, but hey, it was ours and that was good enough for us. Being a bunch of wannabe writers, we usually always worked with our knowledge of the human language to come up with some tale or poem or play describing our experiences firsthand, trying to make them out to be more than they were, getting them down on paper as if they were the events that defined us, made us into what we were. We were the next T.S. Eliots, the next William Blakes, the next Agatha Christie's, Stephen King's, Alfred Hitchcock's, H.G. Wells's. At one point, I even thought I would surpass the great William Shakespeare, write something better than Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth, or to my deepest hopes, Othello. But who was I kidding? Horror stories and half-completed novels were never going to get me past the line in terms of genius, but I suppose now they never will anyway. Lovely, lovely Jennifer at the window. Those were the days. Those were the days. God, I would give anything to go back. Absolutely anything. But I can't. Those days have slipped through my fingers, and my friends along with them. 2012. Hell of a year, if you ask me. London hosted the Olympic Games, the Mars lander Curiosity lands on the Red Planet, Voyager 1 exits our solar system, Windows 8 is released by Microsoft, and of course, the end of the world happens. But I wouldn't put that last one on a list of the top 10 most influential things to happen in the history of planet Earth, although it did help Mother Nature to get back to where it was before the 7 billion humans decided to come and change the course of its destiny, so I suppose that's good. Us humans don't really see it the same way. Understandably so, I think. But hey, I'm no god, so what the hell would I know, right? No, my area of expertise was one of the first things to give itself into destruction when all this fell. Books were used for kindling, master works were destroyed. The timeless tales of Lovecraft and Dickens were taken off those library shelves and cast into the flames of the new world. I can't blame the ones who made it happen, I suppose. After all, one needs heat to survive, and the printed page placed in a pile at room temperature is not going to cause that chemical reaction to happen. But what is done is done. Lovely, lovely Jennifer at the window. Fear in a handful of dust. Fair is foul and foul is fair. Tiger, tiger, burning bright. They're all lost in apocalypse philosophy. How many men does it take to change a light bulb? None. For the light bulb and the men are both dead. Each in equal measure. The world ends with a bang, not a whimper. Or a nuclear explosion, however you would like to put it. Whether it was a coincidence or not that the Mayan calendar ended at the exact date that those bombs were dropped is out of my hands. I just know it happened, and I was there, and I saw the explosion. One at a time. Boom London, boom New York, boom Tokyo, boom every city that the human race called home. Not boom me. I hid, and I survived, and I came across other survivors, and then we hid in a bunker. What we came to know as the Hymn to the Planet. My personal name for it would have been Hymn to Death, but we need hope, and a name like that does not promote positive. We are 20 in this bunker, 20 humans making it as best as we can. Rations are low, we live each day as it comes. We have those days and nights where we have fun, we laugh, we smile, we ignore what lies above us. Those wastelands. Those are the nights we live for now. The nights where we have all the food in the world we need and the group is whole again. Nobody has gone on a supply run. We aren't saying goodbye to another member of the party that might have died that day. We aren't having to look after one another as we hope and pray that we make it through to the other side of the sickness we are facing. We stay alive for those nights, and those nights alone. That is our apocalypse philosophy. Live life to the fullest and live it while you can, because when the end comes, it will be quicker than you ever imagined. Lovely, lovely Jennifer at the window. Lovely Jennifer. Jack Wallace put his pen and paper down, then glanced over at the others. As he did this, he smiled.
What the hell are you smiling at?
And suddenly he was back. The explosions sounding out around him, the bullets flying past his head, the pen and paper gone, and his clothes replaced with his standard military uniform.
Get your head in the damn game, soldier. We need to take this place. Our backup is coming and we can't afford them to arrive without our mission being fulfilled.
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. As he said this, he turned, facing the battleground once again. He wished he were lying underground in a bunker with 19 other people. It would at least be better than the situation he was facing at that moment, but his imagination wasn't real life. Real life was real life. And he was part of the war. A soldier facing death each and every day with a rifle in his hands, and the gripping fear in his heart. There were bombs, though. It was true that all the major cities were wiped out, and it was true that he had been a writer. But now, he was a soldier, fighting against the enemy in the hopes of saving the human race from total annihilation. Or at least, what was left of him. He wished the bombs had been dropped by mankind, that he and the other soldiers were facing familiar enemies on the front line. But it was just not so. Those bombs were alien, the work of an extraterrestrial life form, originating from a distant planet out there among the stars. He wished he was back in the past, staring at that girl in the window. Lovely Jennifer at the window. That was where she died, lovely Jennifer. She was shown the handful of dust. She knew that life was a poor player strutting and footing its hour upon the stage. She knew that the world ended with a bang, not a whimper. The girl at the window. That's what we used to call her. Lovely Jennifer at the window. Nobody really knew her last name, but that wasn't the important part. After all my time, all the things I have seen, I can only say one thing: live life by the apocalypse philosophy. Remember the good times, for the end will show you fear in a handful of dust. Trust me, I have seen it, and it is the scariest thing this world has to offer. I beg you to come back, lovely Jennifer at the window. Lovely Jennifer. And never leave again. Never leave again.
I can see them. They are right there in front of me.
Are you sure?
Yes, I can see them. They are right there. Get me out. Please, get me out.
Calm down. You're perfectly fine if you don't move.
Just get me out.
Don't move.
Please.
Jack, I need you to calm down.
They're coming right for me.
I want you to listen to me, Jack. Can you do that? Jack? Jack, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Listen to me. I need you to sit perfectly still. Don't try and get up. Don't try and move yourself towards the door. I just need you to sit perfectly still for me. Can you do that?
If I don't move, they'll get me.
No, they won't. You will be perfectly fine.
How can you be so sure?
I told you before. I went in there, didn't I? I've done this test myself.
You have?
Yes, Jack, I have. So trust me.
Oh, okay, I trust you.
That's good to hear, Jack.
So, just stay perfectly still. Right? Hello, are you still there?
I'm still here, Jack. Just keep sitting there. You're doing well. Only a couple more minutes now.
I don't know if I can sit here for that long.
You can do it.
I can't. They're getting brighter.
Nothing will hurt you as long as you stay.
No, I can't. I have to get out of here. Let me out, please. I'm doing exactly as you say. They are still coming.
Jack! Jack, don't move. Wait!
They are...
God damn it!
Sir, should we continue?
The scientist looked out over the test chamber through the one-way mirror, staring with frustration at the burnt remains of the humanoid that had been inside. Yes. We should continue. Get a removal team in there.
Yes, sir.
The other man moved off, leaving the scientist alone inside the observation room. Slowly, he turned away from the scene before him. He flicked the switch nearest him, and slowly, the mechanical metal shades in the room began to close, sealing off the space to the sunlight once more. There's got to be a way, he thought. There has to be a way to cure this. And suddenly, a voice from behind him penetrated the silence.
Sir, the next subject is ready.
Have you given him the serum?
Yes.
Get him in the room. The man nodded. then walked out.
There has to be a way,
The scientist thought once again, watching as 2 security guards picked up the burnt remains, hauled them out, then led the latest subject into the test chamber.
There has to be a way to cure this disease.
Dr. Marcus had been able to cure many things in his time: the common cold, cancer, dementia. But curing this was just something he seemed unable to do. Converting these vampires back into normal human beings, it seemed like the most impossible thing in the world.